Meeting Lorenzo was a kick because nobody knows what Lorenzo or knew what Lorenzo looked like. Lorenzo protected his face. He thought that gave him a certain mystique, and he was right. He never allowed anybody to photograph him, ever. His headshot was him eating a gigantic hamburger with a pair of reflective sunglasses on and a beret. And you had absolutely no sense of what the man's face looked like. He was one of the kindest, sweetest men. So incredibly intelligent and witty, and giving of his time. And I remember after that first season, he had us all over to his beautiful home for a Christmas dinner. You know, it was just, I was just, you know, you have cast friends, but you're friends on the show, and then you go your separate ways. But he actually made it a family, and it was just one of the most wonderful evenings. We passed the entire evening in his home. I remember asking him once too, because I knew his history. He created the Bob Newhart show. He created the Rhoda show. He was an established comedy writer, Emmy-winning comedy writer. And I said to him, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing voiceovers when you had the power of being a producer in Hollywood?" He goes, "What kind of power?" Somebody would come in and say, "Does Rhoda wear the red dress or the blue dress in this episode?" I'd say, "The blue dress." "Some power." "I have a lot more power doing this because I have the power to control my performance." And that's the way he felt it. He was done with that aspect of his life, and he viewed voiceover as the purest form of creativity for him, and he loved it, and I loved working with him. Lorenzo gave you Lorenzo. I mean, he actually had to amp up the energy to play Venkman a little bit. He was a very, very laid-back guy, and to play, he never tried to do a Bill Murray impression, but you got Lorenzo at 110%. Because he brought in the smart aleck and the guy who hits on the women, kind of a thing. And so, yeah, he actually had to bring his own personal level of energy up. He was just one of the most relaxed, easygoing human beings I've ever known. Kath Soucie came in, who has a very, she played it very sweet, very innocent, and Kath is a wonderful actress and has been truly one of the giants of voiceover. I mean, she's another one who's been in everything. She's almost the female Frank Welker. And so that was the first cast change. And we all missed Laura, but Kath came into our family, as it were, and she was such an open person that we just, we immediately liked her. And it was the beginning of a long career for her in voiceover. Lorenzo was replaced by Dave Coulier, who Arsenio and I both knew from stand-up comedy. Knew he did a terrific Bill Murray, used to do in his act. Coulier, though, coming into the show, was one of those guys that as soon as we yelled cut, he had great impressions, little one-liners, a lot of bathroom humor, that type of thing. Funniest Broderick Crawford impression in the business, and we had a lot of fun with him. But Lorenzo was missed, and I guess it led to a certain vibe, in the studio of, you felt a little guilty for enjoying the new guy, and because you're supposed to be missing the old guy, and you did miss the old guy, and it was a little strange for those of us who stayed on. I think I'm the guy that stayed on the longest because I held on to Egon all the way through Extreme Ghostbusters, even on Slimer. In Extreme, we recorded all those shows at night because we had so many sitcom people in the cast, and I know Frank just wasn't interested in working nights. Being the workingest man in all of animation, he just, with his blessing, he said, "No, you can recast Slimer and I won't be upset." And Billy West became Slimer, so I guess I'm the survivor. Then Arsenio, to backtrack, after the Coulier replacement, Arsenio Hall got very lucky. He had guest hosted The Late Show when Joan Rivers had departed from it, and that turned into his own show. So obviously that was going to take up all of his time, and so Buster Jones came in. Less guilt there because Arsenio was going onward and upward to something fantastic, and Buster did an admirable job filling the shoes, and he was great. humor got very, as I said, we had a lot of bathroom humor, a lot of fart sounds. You know, Frank being the sort of the senior member, he kept it very clean. But gosh, it's just really hard to, you know, I mean, I'm hard pressed to think of anything that I could repeat for you. That's just, such was Coulier's sense of humor. Mine got rowdier. I mean, I came to this as a polite young Canadian, you know, please and thank you. I mean, I could, you know, if I bumped into a parking meter while standing talking to somebody, I would apologize to the parking meter. And you know, this put a little bit of more of an edge around me, as it were. But yeah, there's nothing that's quite okay for family consumption here. Often I try to bring in other voices. You know, I mean, as we were doubling up, I remember doing, you know, Walter Cronkite as a newscaster in an episode called Egon on the Rampage. And so I would bring in other things and try and... Actually, my Walter Cronkite, I think, has gotten a little better with age. I might have been too young to play it at the time. Johnny Carson was always a good template. I think I must have used him once or twice for a street character.
I don't think we ever used Orson Welles, although I'm aware of using Orson several other times in the world of animation as a template for a character.
But we won't go into that here. Yeah, so, you know, using and being an impressionist was a very handy thing for both Frank and I, you know, in these shows. And sometimes an impression's just a little off the nose, as we say, not quite exact, goes a long, long way. I owe the world to Marcia Goodman, who directed and cast these things. You know, this and the show that preceded it from her, Inspector Gadget, those two shows pretty much established me in the world of voiceover. It was because this thing had such a life, it made me look as though I was working constantly. It was great. We fooled everybody. But Marcia was a tremendous director to work with. She had fun with us. She had as much of a bathroom sense of humor as we did, and yet when it was time, was like, all right, boy chicks, get back on the page.